Welcome, I'm Nicole. This is a tutorial for the Feeling Peachy SKORT. Yay! Feeling peachy! So for the last few years, I've been really obsessed with SKORTs, which I've talked about like 8 million times on this channel. And that says a lot because I don't really have that many videos. I just loved wearing my linen Abercrombie SKORT or this Free People knit tennis SKORT that I had. What if I start making my own? And I'm finally here to share mine because I wanted one every color. And then I hate when I can't find a color that I want, and I wanted it to be knit. Because I wanted to be comfortable. It's just a nice basic to have in your closet. And I just really wanted to make a little saucy outfit. So then I added this little halter top, and here I am wearing her now. The skirt has a cute little ruched waistband, has shorts underneath. I like that it's ruching right on your little midsection. I love a little ruched panel. I love showing a little leg. It makes you look taller. And then on top of that, then I add a little platform sandal. It's all about the vision. I'm trying to elongate myself. And that means I kind of like wearing a short skirt. Ultra mini, so it could be a little cheeky if you want to shorten it or lengthen it. For warning, she is short. So make sure that you like the length first before you go into your final stamp. I included some alteration tips on shortening your rise and also then shortening the skirt or lengthening the skirt. So those are at the end. I gave options to use just your sewing machine or a sewing machine and a serger. The only trim you're going to need is a 1/4 inch elastic. You can follow along and you can ask questions down below. First, printing your pattern. I keep her in this little folder because she's special. You're going to print it at 100% scale. Do not shrink to fit. As is. And you're gonna make sure that your 2-inch box matches so that you can make sure you're at the right scale. If it's on scale, you're doing good. Then you can print the rest if you don't want to waste paper. Then you're going to tape each piece edge to edge. No space, do not cut anything off, just edge to edge to edge. Waist, high hip, and hip measurements. Find the best size that works for you. If you're in between sizes, this is a knit, pick the best size for you. Link down below on where you can get the pattern. And then last thing, always make a proto first. Always make a proto first. Never go straight in. Just find some scrap fabric. I like to get scrap fabric at thrift stores, any discounted fabric place you could find, just to get your hands on some stuff to test. It always has better results. Fabrics. I made some fabric suggestions in the sewing instructions. This pattern is made for knits, so a 2-way, a 4-way stretch. I listed options I could think of in there.
I know knits can be challenging because wovens can be the default in the sewing community. Fabric is really important for this project, so I really want to make sure everyone understands the fabric differences and what to look out for when you're looking for fabrics. I gathered a bunch of different types of knit fabrics that you could use for this project. Let me give you a stretch test and show you exactly what you need to be looking for. First category, slinky jerseys. These are all the versions that have some swing to them. They have some drape. They're very lofty. These are all slightly different versions as far as the content. I got these at the thrift store, but these most likely are either a viscose poly blend or a poly nylon or a poly spandex. This is a black version of it. For weight purposes, you don't want anything to be too see-through. This is probably the lightest I would go, and you could still kind of see. Everything should have a good amount of stretch. This also usually are 4-way stretch. These two are very similar in their structure, and knits tend to curl on the sides. To find out what your grain line is, there are 2 different types of fabrics. They have slightly different ways of how the salvage. On this one, for example, this one is flat. On the salvage, it's kind of harder to determine what the front and the back is. I can help you figure that out. This are the punch lines, right? This is what keeps it on the machine. So when you see these punch lines, a good thing to look out for to figure out what the face and the back is. Although some of these can be kind of interchangeable. As long as you can't tell, then I'm sure people can't either. The punch holes are going in, okay? So that means that this side would be the face. So look out for the punch holes to be a little less dramatic. You can't really see through it all the way because the fabric hasn't quite punctured all the way. But on this side, you can see that the hole is very prominent. And this one, again, has lots of stretch. This one has a little less stretch in the length. Still a good thing for sewing. This one would be a little bit harder as far as the slip. This one's a little glossier, has a little bit more of a sheen to it. And there's not a distinct horizontal line, but same concept here to figure out the face and the back side. In this instance, the back side is slightly darker than the front, but what you can see is the punch holes. These punch holes on this side are a little less prominent, meaning that this is usually my face, and also it's curling under, which is usually kind of a sign that that's also the face. And then this is the back. Now we're going for some more of the cotton or rayon blends. These ones would definitely have a drier hand feel because of it being more natural fiber. You want to make sure when you're looking out for these cotton ones, because I know we want to prioritize natural fibers, you want to make sure that it has good recovery. Same thing goes for the other slinky ones, but this ones in particular have usually a harder time with recovery. So if you're pulling on this, you want it to hopefully maintain its shape. and have it bounce back without showing signs of stress. So see, I'm yanking this really hard. Let's see how much it snaps back. And that's a good sign for me. I would still be able to use this in this pattern. Same goes for this orange. This one I can tell is also probably a natural fiber or a blend. The spandex, you can tell from the sheen of it. That's where you know there's some spandex in there. Check the recovery. Pretty good. Still use this as well. This is called a tricot. Kind of usually isn't your best quality fabric. It's mostly used for linings. It tends to have kind of a drier hand. It feels like costume fabric and usually doesn't have that good of a recovery. But so let me do a stretch. Okay, this one's not the worst, honestly, but it's just not your favorite to wear. And also this is only a two-way stretch. So see how there's barely any stretch in the width, but not in the length. I would avoid this kind. This one is, I believe, 100% cotton. Let's do a little stretch test. So this is why I decided to not choose this fabric, okay? So here it has stretch here, it has stretch here, it has stretch in both the weft and the warp. But here's our issue. It doesn't have good recovery, okay? There's a little bit of spandex in here, but I can already feel like like this is gonna stay. That's what you don't want. Pull marks, it's not going back into its original form and shape. It's creating these weird little mountaintops.
And then also, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking I'm gonna cut her out in like a sequin or something, you know? Like that could be really cute. You know, like those cute little viral shell skirts on Pinterest? Cute, just saying, because this is on mesh. Mesh also works.
A knit sequin. This one has a mesh backing, preferably a power mesh. Last type of fabric that I maybe would avoid using, but also you could if you wanted to do a swim version. This is usually what's used for athletic wear and also swim. It just feels like swim fabric. It is a four-way stretch as well. It has that little like luster sheen on top and on the back. It's not gonna have any flow to it at all. And if it does, it kind of still looks like a workout skort. So if you wanted to make a workout skort, this is actually the perfect fabric to use. So I would look for something that's 100% nylon or a nylon spandex. And it's really hard to see the defining lines. So it's very like compact.
Moving on to step one.
We've made it to the cutting portion. Most of the pattern is cut on the fold, so I do give an alternative option where you could tri-fold your fabric. I do that all the time just to be able to fit length of fabric. Knit fabrics can get a little tricky, especially when they have spandex in them, so just make sure you're really lining them up. Spend some time with the fabric. For the green square, I opted to make everything in self, no separate lining, but for the white version, because I didn't want a double polka dot, I did a separate lining for the shorts and waistband facing. I left a couple suggested layout options that you could do because there is a lot of things that need to be on the fold. Within your cuttable width, I think you're gonna just need to find the best layout that works for you dependent on your size. So just kind of play around, give it a little bit more thought, but also you could reference what I've suggested.
Before you get started on the final product, you're gonna wanna try on your proto sample first. I wanna try this on and go over any changes I would make to the fit and things to look for when you try on your first proto sample. We got her on. First things to look out for. On your waistband, you wanna make sure it's not too tight or too loose, okay? At the end, realize that my back was a little too short. Because obviously everything that has some shape to it is going to pick things up. Just like how on your top it would pick up the front length, it would do the same thing with your tush back here. It's going to lift up, so I need to add just a little bit more length. I'm going to add a 1/2 inch. That'll be fixed on yours probably, but secondly, I think that my shorts, the rise is a little too long, so I'm gonna pinch out about 1 inch. My shorts are just a little low, so I wanna bring those back up so they're nice and fitted underneath and not like hanging loose. You don't want anything to hang loose here. We had to do that on the pattern as well. If you need to add any length, this would be the time to do it. If you need to size up, if you need to add anything to your thigh or take out a little bit. See how I'm a little angled here?
We move on to the sewing prep. If you're using your domestic machine instead of a serger, here's a tip. Preferably, if you would like, you should be doing this with a walking foot.
Basically what you're trying to avoid is getting your fabric stuck in the machine. So
the walking foot really helps with the tension on the top and the bottom. Especially when I first started sewing knits, it really helped me not get my fabric caught into the machine. Before we get started with the actual sewing, for the instructions, you're going to clip the middle point on the front and back of your waistband and waistband facing and front skirt and back skirt if you're working on option 1 and option 2. I'm going to go directly to the serger. You could use a zigzag stitch or a serger. Sharing my settings in case it's helpful. All right, it's time to start putting everything together. And how we're gonna do that is we're gonna start by joining all of these side seams, starting off with the waistband and the waistband facing.
do. So you remember what side the seam allowance should go to when you're basting. Towards the back.
Skirt. This pink version is the circle skort version. If you're using option 3, yours will look like the pink. Same concept, we are sewing together the side seam, so I'm taking the back skirt and joining with the front left and right skirt. So just keep note of that. If you want your slit to one side, the pattern is set up to have the slit on the wearer's right side, but you could always invert it. I love keeping my sewing tweezers out. They're always a great tool to use when I'm using some slippery fabrics. They just help me kind of keep things together, and they can help you dig into the machine to help realign things. Try to be careful around your basting stitches. Try to avoid sewing over them. Because we're sewing all the side seams in subsequential order, I am just going to press everything after I finish all those seams. I really hate getting up to use the iron every 5 seconds, so. For the shorts,
I'm going to start by sewing together the out seams, and then also right after I will sew the inseams together. I also like to hold up the weight of the garment so that it doesn't add to it growing. And there we go. Gorgeous. Front, back, cat.
you're also going to want to be diligent while you're joining your rise, making sure that the inseams on both legs are really lined up good. I've had to rip mine out and redo them just to make sure that the seam was matching. So just pin extra in this section.
Whenever the curve comes around, I just try to like hold it to the side so it ends up trying to be a straight line. And it's
She's perfect. After steps 1 through 5, this is what we're looking like. This pink version is the circle skort version. Doing option 1, your skirt will look like the white polka dot.
every top edge is basted. Now what we'll do is we're going to put these two together and these two together. I've come to find that basting the seam allowances does help. Before we start anything, we're going to start off by basting all of the edges that I think will stretch while I'm serging. All right, here's my girl, strong and tough. I'm gonna show you in detail how to do the basting stitch in case you don't already or aren't familiar with it. Basically, it's the length of your stitch. So we're going to, instead of doing a 2.5 stitch, which is like very compact and has more stitches per inch, which is also referred to as SPI, change it to the longest stitch that you can. The higher the number, the longer the stitch. So my machine goes up to a 5. Nothing else needs to change. You're just doing a straight stitch. Also, don't forget to change out your needle for a ballpoint needle and you'll be set.
You're just gonna go straight, no back stitch. Guide the fabric through.
Just make sure you give everything a good
Preferably, I
hard
feel like
press.
the basting should be over more, but do it over about a 1/2 inch. Don't stop and go at the front. And then you're just gonna leave some tails, meaning leave some extra at the end.
The whole point is that I don't want the seam to stretch out while I'm serging it, because sometimes the serger can pull and stretch out the seam and then it doesn't fit. So that's why I'm doing this.
We're moving on to the waistband. I was attempting to show you this and I completely miserably failed. Here's what we're gonna do.
So we're going to take the waistband and the waistband facing and we're going to connect those at the top edge. So you have your waistband and your waistband facing. You're going to want to pin the top edges of those together, front sides facing each other. Once you join these two together with some pins, we're going to add the elastic.
This is where I want to put the elastic, just to help with the recovery on your waistband so it doesn't continue to stretch out. Sew the elastic onto the top edge. I'm going to serge it. You could probably use a zigzag stitch and feed the elastic in at the same time as the waistband. I'm not going to stretch, I'm not going to pull, I'm just going to go straight in. Okay, so we're just going to feed in our elastic and we're going to try to follow and keep it on the edge. This piece is shaped, so I'm just trying to slowly go through, but if you're a beginner, just go really slow or practice first on a sample garment. And then once I get to the end, I'm just going to create a tail to cut up. And there we go.
And then this is what your joined waistband with the elastic will look like after it's complete. Now we're going to understitch. Understitching using a double needle or a zigzag. Now you could use a straight stitch instead of a zigzag stitch or a double needle. You're just going to want to test this first to make sure that you could deal with that amount of non-stretch. But I prefer to use a stretch stitch than a straight stitch. Back to the understitching. Okay, so what I'm doing, I don't know why I sewed it in this direction, but basically we are making sure the seam allowance is going towards the inside waistband facing. Doing the understitch kind of helps elevate. It looks a little bit more store-bought. I like to do it, and also it makes the waistband not roll. You could also use a zigzag stitch here or a lightning stitch. All of those work. Just take it really slow, okay? I'm trying to show different threads so that you can see what it looks like, but this is the inside of the waistband now. Okay. Or as an alternative, instead of understitching, you could always just stitch in the ditch at the side seams, and that also helps the waistband not roll towards the front. The waistband facing roll towards the front. But if you do it this way, then you should ruche the side seams of your waistband first, and then you could stitch in the ditch on the waistband. Now we're going to ruche the waist.
Take the elastic and almost do like a third of the actual measurement.
So I was just trying to explain the first way that you could do your ruching on the waist side seams. First method is to use the same elastic that you're using on your waist, a 1/4 inch elastic. You could use swimwear elastic or braided elastic. I'm gonna attach this by using a straight stitch and by pulling and holding the elastic so that when you snap it back, it will be ruched on the sides. You're gonna start with a straight stitch. I like to back stitch in the beginning and then continue on with, you'll see what I'm doing. Basically, straight stitch, you're gonna back stitch in the beginning, maybe for like a 1/4 inch down. Then you're going to watch what I'm doing and you're gonna pull your elastic as you sew it down with the straight stitch. As you'll see in a different clip, I learned that I like to stop a 1/2 inch before the bottom edge. So ignore what I'm doing here and stop a 1/2 inch before the end of your waistband. There's 3 different methods that you could use. I'm gonna show you 2 of them.
I would normally do the basting on my normal machine, but I didn't bring her. So we're gonna do some hand basting. If only I could find my sewing needles. Where are you?
I've come to prefer this method over the elastic method. Every once in a while, hand sewing just feels nice for control. So you're going to tie a knot and you're going to start close to the join seam of your waistband facing in your waistband. And from there, I just kind of go in, up and down, up and down, up and down, so that I can then shear it at the end and tie it off. Waistband, after shearing up the front waistband to match the inside waistband facing measurement, I then tie off the shearing at the bottom edge of the waistband and close it off about a 1/2 inch above. So with your 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're trying not to, chop it off when you're sewing the waistband to the skort. Then I'm going to show you how to stitch in the ditch. So I'm just making sure that I roll waistband facing in towards the inside, and then I'm going to carefully place the needle, and I like to do crank the machine by hand first, and then I can sew, and I usually go about 1 inch down. Now we're getting to the hemming. I prefer to hem prior to connecting the waistband to the skort because it's a little less heavy to put through the machine. So there's not as much to fiddle around with and have to move layers. So I prefer to do it now. But because this isn't it, you don't have to hem it. I would suggest that certain fabrics probably would benefit from a hem and other ones could just be left raw. Okay, here's where we're at. I put the shorts underneath the skirt and they're both, you have your front short, the self, and then this is the back of the skirt. So I just slipped it in underneath, and then now I'm gonna baste all around the waist so that we can then attach it to the waistband. I'm just gonna hand base this because I'm too lazy to get out my other sewing machine. We're gonna do the same thing we did for option 1, and we're gonna join the skirt and the short. We're gonna baste them together. So you're going to match up your notches on both fronts of your skirts will match up with center front on the shorts. Now it's time to join the waistband with the skirt portion. This is for option 1, You're going to take your joined waistband that's already been sheared and ruched on the sides, lining up the center front notches that you put on the waistband. You're going to turn it inside out so the facing is on the outside. So basically they're face to face right now. The waistband that's ruched should be facing the skort. Be diligent with pinning and take your time. This is the last step pretty much, so you want to just not speed through it. You're going to be going through a lot of layers, so just take your time. Can you hear my cat right now? Now we're just joining the waistband with the skort. Again, being really diligent, be careful. There's a lot of layers, especially in the circle skirt version, so I love to have the tweezers around. Just keep the tweezers around. Gorgeous! It's a hot girl summer. Thighs are out this summer. She's meant to be worn outside, okay? Get yourself a little blocky heel. Let's go. Honestly, I've been watching a little bit too much Love Island, so excuse me. I got excited for the summer. She's cute, she's short, she's mini, she's a little saucy, and she's made for the summer. Now to the juicy stuff. We're going to get into some bonus pattern alteration. So basically I'm going to show you how to apply your fit corrections to I just got a ruler pattern. And some pens and some scissors and some tape. First rule here is that if you're taking anything off from the full width of the garment, you're going to divide up your number by the number of seams. Since this is all a 2-inch grade, you're about a 1/2 inch in between sizes. So I would really only be doing a 1/4 if you need like a 1/2 size in between. So you're going to take off a 1/4 from the front waistband and a 1/4 from the back waistband, and that would give you 1 inch. So if you need to take out 2 inches from the waistband, at that point you should just size down. First scenario, you want to decrease your waist measurement. Maybe it's a little too big at the top edge. This is how you could do it. You could blend between 2 sizes, or maybe you just need to downsize, but you need to make sure that you could either fully just go down a full size without making a pattern correction, or you could blend between 2 sizes. Just make sure that everything lines up and ends up being the same measurement when you need to cut everything out. Meaning the bottom edge of your waistband still needs to line up with the same measurement as the top edge of your skirt. Maybe you don't have as much curve at your waist and you're a little bit straighter. This is how I would straighten it. For the shorts, things get a little more complicated. This first tip is if you're needing to open your leg opening or close your leg opening, maybe it's too tight on your thigh or maybe it's too loose. This is how you'd make that correction. You could either shave off a little bit from the bottom edge of the side seam and kind of blend up to the top edge, or what I prefer is the slash and spread method. The first one, I am decreasing the leg opening. I'm drawing a line in the middle point of the leg opening, and then I'm going to cut to the edge, but don't cut all the way through, and then we're going to overlap. Once you overlap to make smaller, you'll notice that the hem is a little uneven, so I'm just going to blend that out. You could also take the opportunity to fill in the center back of the short if you wanted a little bit more length here. I would use this if you have equally needing to shorten the whole short. Basically use this to shorten the entire rise all the way around. So if you're a little bit more short-waisted. Whether you lengthen or reduce, make sure that your out seam is cleaned up like how I'm doing here. Otherwise, there's another tip on how to, if you have like a tilted waist where you tilt towards the back or you tilt towards the front. I'm basically like rebalancing the pattern would be the way to describe it, to adjust to my body type. Depending on how high your backside sits, some people sits a little bit higher and some people sits a little bit lower. If you're sitting a little bit lower, you could need some more seat, or if you're sitting higher, you might need to reduce the seat. Right now I'm increasing. If your center back is dipping when you sit, you're gonna want to add to the center back waist length, and this is how I do it. Maybe you want to lower the center front waist a little bit to show a little more midriff, or maybe you're just kind of evening out depending on the angle that you stand at. Now for the skirt, if you want to reduce the sweep, this is how you could do it. Same method as the shorts, reducing the leg opening, it's slashing and spreading. You can either add more or add less, depending on maybe how much thigh room you need. Maybe if you have a little less thigh than me, you want to reduce the sweep, or you could increase it. I wouldn't spread more than 1.25 inches. That's the widest I would go, and even that's a little risky. I would then split it up into 1 inch on the middle where I'm slashing and spreading, and maybe 1/2 inch at the side seam. Now let's talk about if you want to add length to the skirt because she's a little too mini. This is how I would do it. You would just add to the bottom length. I'm adding 1/2 inch here. Otherwise, the center back has some extra length for coverage.
Also, don't forget to subscribe and a little thumbs up, you know? I think I'm done. Yeah.